Hello and welcome to this installment of Vantage Point, a speaker series hosted by the Worldwide College of Business. The series was created to increase connections to the industry by offering a platform, and something happened here, by offering a platform for thought leaders to discuss various topics which impact and improve business and organizational performance. As Dean of the College of Business, I wish you a very, very warm welcome this evening, and I'm very excited to introduce you to our exciting speaker for this event, Ms. Vanessa Blacknall-Jamison. Vanessa joins us, and she has 45 years of professional aviation experience, including 29 years in a leadership position. She is currently a change advisor and leadership coach with the Federal Aviation Administration. In this role, Vanessa provides high-value expertise and guidance with a focus on interagency and national change efforts. She also provides one-on-one team and group coaching to executives, middle managers, and frontline managers as well. Vanessa holds an MBA and received her BA in Public Relations from the University of Southern California, the Trojans. She also holds a variety of certificates. Vanessa, we're so grateful to have you here this evening with us. Just so you know, everybody on this call is very excited, but relax. You've done this before, no issues. Before I turn the floor over to you, Vanessa, just want you to know that to the audience that any questions that you have, you're welcome to type in the Q&A icon box, and one of us would read off those questions to Vanessa for her to address. So now, Vanessa, it is time and my pleasure to turn this webinar over to you, and welcome once more.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you so much. So addressing everyone today, I want you to know the camera gremlins have decided to take over. So I am really good with being any vision of a vibrant color, so that helps us in doing this presentation. So thank you again, Rachel, for the opportunity to speak before everyone, and thank you again, Dean. My discussion is all about change management and the human factor side. There's so much going on in what we're doing in our world today, and I have had the pleasure and honor of being in the change management and leadership coaching environment since 2014. And the growth that we've experienced at the FAA has been tremendous. And I owe it all to a wonderful boss, my boss, Eris Scarla, and we have a lovely change management team that I've been working with for a very long time. So let's get the discussion started. So next slide, please. We know that change is constant. We hear it all the time. And we know that it's faster. We know it's moving even stronger than what we've had before. It's more complex, it's cross-functional, and there's more information being provided right now. But the most important part is being in this, volatile uncertainty, the complexity, as well as that ambiguity that's associated with that VUCA world. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the involvement and having to deal with change management, and we're focusing a lot on leadership and how leaders respond in this environment. Because as you know, and most people know, that leaders, they're the best. They're the ones who has to do the work to ensure that we get the work done. But what are they facing? And do we really take the time to understand what is in front of them? 76% of our CEOs said that their ability to adapt to change will be a key source for competitive advantage. 76%. So that means, again, change is constant. 9 out of 10 executives says organizational agility is critical to the business success and growing in importance over time. That's by McKinsey, a quarterly report. But we know that that is more than 9 out of 10. It's really 10 out of 10. Leaders have to understand the importance of change and how they're going to manage change and what change looks like for them. But more importantly, When you're looking at greater organizational agility and that better performance, we equal improved competitive advantage. That's just a fact. So I want to talk a little bit about the FAA. Next slide, please. So the office that I'm working in, it's out of the aviation safety arena, and I'm under flight standards. If you've noticed in the news today or last couple of weeks, our FAA administrators left. We now have an acting administrator, Billy Nolan, who's going to take over for Administrator Dixon in an acting role. We also have another actor in in a lot of the organizations that are here. We're just now beginning to put permanent people in permanent positions. So when you have a lot of actors in roles, how do they act and change? That's a really good question. If you're not solid in the position that you're in, or you feel confident or comfortable in your position, then are you there to make changes? Are you able to make the decisions that are necessary for you to move forward? Well, we are in the midst at the FAA of a tremendous amount of change, but it's good. Change isn't always something that's negative or something that's bad. So I'd like to walk you through just a little bit about change management. Next slide, please. When we talk about being successful in change, and requires both the technical and the people side of change, we know as technical leaders, technical individuals, we will get the job done. There is no question involved with the technical side. We have the ability, we are smart, we understand where we're going, and we know what that desired outcome is going to be. That is our success. We know how to make it happen. We know how to ensure that it's being executed on that project side. And we know how to design, we know how to develop, and we know how to deliver. But let's put this other component in there. And that other component is, what's the current state? Why are you changing? What is the need for the change? We can always go back to Simon Sinek and talk about why, the why. The why becomes so important because if you're just changing for the sake of change, then you have to know why. You have to be able to tell your people why you're changing. So when you look at that current state, that transition state that's going to get you there, the future state that's going to get you to that success or that desired outcome becomes very, very dependent upon people. We have forgotten about the people side of change. People are your catalyst for everything that you do. We know that. We say that, but do we honestly embrace it? Do we understand that it takes time for people to adopt? It takes time for people to really find their place in whatever that change may be. But we have to always focus on the people side of change. People are the ones who are really going to execute whatever that change may be. So I'm laughing because I can use the COVID. We know what's happening with COVID. And I'm laughing because everyone knows, not because of COVID, but it's now the reporting back to work, what we went through 2 years before COVID in trying to determine how are we going to function? How are we going to live in an environment where we've been accustomed to working? Did we have an opportunity to build a case for change? No, we didn't. And in some cases, we had to react immediately. And now that we're coming out of COVID, and now we know that there's opportunities for us to be in school, to go back to our places of work, have we done a good job in preparing our people to come back to work? No, we haven't. Because we did not and have not taken the people side to understand what's in it for them, the WIMFM. What's in it for me? Why is it important for me to embrace this change? I like what I'm doing now. I'm comfortable being at home these last 2 years. And now you're telling me I have to go through another change? Something that we've got to think about, okay? So the next slide, please. I'm going to introduce you to AdCard. ADKAR is a simple model that was created by ProSci. And ProSci is the company that we use for their methodology. And ADKAR is a simple takeaway tool. It's creating the awareness, the desire, the knowledge, the ability, and the reinforcement. You can use ADKAR in practically any decision-making tool that you can use, that you're looking to make decisions about. Or I'll use the example of me trying to understand Bikram yoga. If many of you are familiar with hot yoga, why would anybody want to be in a room when it's 102 degrees and sit there and sweat and try to work out? Didn't make sense to me. Next slide, please. So it's a building block of creating that awareness, desire, knowledge, and ability. You must understand why you're doing something. You have to have the desire to do it. You may take some knowledge to get involved with it. Then you create that ability. Then once you've established all of this, then now you create this reinforcement. Next slide, please. So with the awareness, it becomes that, what's the nature of the change? Why are we changing? What's the need to change? Why is this needed at this time? And what's the risk of not changing? That's a big question. So let's use this with this Bikram yoga. I needed to make a change. I needed to exercise more. And I felt that this was going to be the greatest thing for me. At least I heard from someone else that this was fantastic. So I said, okay, I think I know why I want to do it. I think I know I have a need. I need to change my routine. But what's the risk of me not taking this opportunity? Well, I may not work out anymore, or I'm not getting that physical fitness that I need. Next slide, please. So I believe that I created the awareness because I did a little research, but the desire was missing. What is it? Why is this a benefit for me? What's in it for me? That we call it the WIMFM. But it's a personal choice. So I had to make the choice and the decision. Okay, Vanessa, this is something that you're going to do. It's 102 degrees in that room, and I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to do this, and I want to be a part of it. I want to be engaged, and I'm going to participate. So I actually went to a facility and started talking to the receptionist. By the time I finished speaking with her, I didn't have the desire to do it at all, because she told me I would need to do it at least 3 times in a 7-day period. And I thought, are you kidding me? 7 days, 3 days, and a 7-day period and 102 temperature. Next slide, please. With that decision, though, I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go in that room. I understand she's given me all the information that I need. I'm going to take on this challenge. So I went into the room. I now am in that training process, and I thought I was going to pass out. As a matter of fact, I had to sit down about 4 or 5 times because it's overwhelming. It was mind-boggling to be in a position like this. But I did learn a new skill. Next slide, please. So I gained that knowledge. Now I've learned the ability. So I did stick with her. I stuck with it for 3 days. I did it 3 times in that 7-day period. I actually was able to demonstrate the ability to do it, to stand in this room. And I noticed the first thing that changed was not all that chatter in my brain, because I'm telling myself, I can't do something. I can't do this. It's too hot. This is annoying. This woman keeps talking. Will she please shut up? All these things are going through my brain. But each day I realized I started focusing on the mantra and what they're telling me and all the people in the room what to do and how to move to the next set. Next slide, please. So I went back. I went back again and again. And I've been doing Bikram yoga now, hot yoga, for over 15 years. I absolutely love it. But what I walked you through was a personal case of using the ADKAR model. But think about applying this to business. Think about applying this to, let's say, the choice of returning back to work. Did we really create the awareness for the employees to return back to work? We might have sent out communications. We might have sent out different type of articles and information that said, this is the projected time frame that we'll return to work. Here's the reason why, but yet we don't have all the necessary rules and regulations to understand what we have to do. That's an issue. That becomes a concern. Were we able to really, truly understand the desire of individuals wanting to return to work? Did we take the time to find out from those individuals what could be done differently? How would you like to be addressed in this area? What can we do to help you make this transition? Okay. What knowledge did they need to come back? Did we provide them the knowledge, okay, that the building's being cleaned, that we're hiring individuals to clean and sanitize the areas? Did we tell them that information? We assume sometimes we did, but maybe we didn't. Then what's the ability? What's the first step? What's day one going to be like when they enter that room again or having to come back to the office? Did we celebrate them coming in? Did we acknowledge their concerns? Did we take a moment to say, hey, we recognize that this was a big change for you? And then lastly, how have we reinforced it? Are we asking people, how are you doing in this moment? How has the last couple of weeks been for you? That's the ADKAR model. Next slide, please. The main point of this slide is just to demonstrate that people become aware of situations at a different time and a different place. Just take away the A, B, C, D, and add Rachel and the Dean and Michelle and any name that you want to put there. And let's use the example of returning back to work. Now, Rachel being A, she had the awareness of the return. She had somewhat of a desire, wasn't really a big issue, but her biggest concern is the ability to be in that room. It's taken her a little bit of time to realize that, you know what, okay, I'm really safe. I feel comfortable being here. Whereas Michelle, number B, Michelle's like, I'm not ready for this yet. My awareness is going to be a little bit later. I think I'm going to need a little time to figure this out and to get on board with this, right? So Michelle, her biggest issue though was really the knowledge, how to return back to work. But if we look at, I'll take myself as number C, Vanessa. I have the awareness, I have the desire, but I have no knowledge of what I need to do to return to work. But everybody changes at a different pace. You can't expect everyone to come in and accept the change at any given moment and through a linear period of time. Next slide, please. When I talk on this particular slide, or what I really want to address on this slide is talking about sponsorship. This sponsorship and preparing yourself first for the change is tremendous. Everything starts with you. You can't move into a space of helping someone else or using human factors in change until you've identified what's your role. How are you going to behave? How are you going to be involved and engaged in the change? How are you going to adapt? What steps do you need to take? What's the WIMFA minute for you? How are you going to feel in developing the need to change and what competencies to manage those change? Are you ready for that change? So first, it all starts with you. You must prepare yourself for the change. Then when you're leading others through the change, now that you have built yourself and you're ready to move into that space, what's important now is leading them by example. We always talk about role models, right? You are the role model. As the leader, you're the role model. So it is important for you to model what's needed, but you got to help your employees by asking those questions about change. How are you functioning and dealing with this change? How are we going to manage this change for you? How are we going to transition? What do you need to make this important transition effective for you in your life? And then reinforcing and using this word, we say it, but we don't do it, and that's celebrate. We have to celebrate our successes, small wins, whether it's a small win or a large win. Small wins become even more important than sometimes the larger ones, because all you're doing is acknowledging, we see you, we hear you, we respect you, we know that this change occurred because of you. Next slide, please. So I talked about the coaching aspect of what I do in the introduction. So coaching and using the coach approach is really important in using change, because as you were working with leaders, many times we don't realize how important coaching is. Coaching allows you that opportunity for any type of life-changing events, experiences, just improve outlooks on where you want to go, advancing your leadership skills and knowing how you want to do it. But also it looks and taps into that unpotential, I call it the creativity and love of life that you have that you may not have been able to explore. But the International Coaching Federation has been a wonderful opportunity for me. I just received my professional coaching certification 2 weeks ago. Yay me. I'm doing my many celebrations, and it is a very positive change. But also it just really reinforces the work that I do and validates my need and my guide to help others. That's my need. That is my passion of what I want to do. And I get to hold people accountable. I get to help leaders to understand the importance of being accountable to your employees as you walk through change, and just being accountable to yourself in the things that you do in your life. Next slide, please. So part of my work, as I indicated, and I do executive, middle, frontline manager, team, group, and individual coaching. That encompasses all leadership type coaching, but I also do on my own mentoring of students. And Jamie, if you're out there, I'm waving at you, mentoring of wonderful individuals that I work with, as well as doing it's called Grad Life Choices. It's a volunteer program that allows us to coach college students that are either been unemployed or underemployed. And that I have two wonderful individuals that I'm working with right now. That's my opportunity to say to them, you have what it takes, and I will continue to help you build who you are and where you want to go. But the importance of coaching and leadership coaching, it's another way to have an individual support you on your journey. No matter where your journey is going, no matter where your journey is taking you, everyone needs someone to talk to. It is not therapy. There are differences in what coaching does and doesn't do for you, but coaching provides you that opportunity to make you be accountable to yourself and to others. And I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit. Next slide, please. So that's the end of my presentation. It's very short, very quick. I keep seeing my head go in and out of blue space and green space. So I would entertain any questions that you have. I want to thank Embry-Riddle for this opportunity to speak with you. It's short and sweet, but I prefer to ask questions, answer questions, and for you to ask me questions. And this is my LinkedIn information or my email address if you have any personal questions. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for introducing us to how change management looks in your walk of life and in your role at the FAA. We're having quite a few questions come in through a chat, and so I will just basically read them out, and if you wouldn't mind responding to them. If anyone has any additional questions, I'd encourage you to post them to our Q&A chat that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. So Vanessa, if you don't mind, we can start with the first question here.
Sure, there.
The question comes in from Constantine Rodino-Casorius. Can you please describe the similarities or differences of a change advisor and an agent of change?
Okay. An agent of change is one that is normally involved in an activity, and they are a collective group or community of change agents. So we employ change agents to take on, and they're the first adopters of a change. So those are the individuals that we're going to seek out to be part of that change agent group. A change advisor, what I do is work with leaders. Most advisors work with leaders to help them facilitate through change and help them understand what it is that they need to do. We have another term for it, hit a highly impactful technical advisor, someone that is going to be there to help them through change, but to also guide them. So it's two different distinct roles, but a change agent, we can't do anything without change agents. Everybody is a change agent. And thank you for that question. Great question.
That makes complete sense. And it actually follows right into the next question, because you talk about, the ability to change at both levels, the executive level, but then also, all through the project team and those that the change impacts. Let's talk about the top side first. What challenges do you typically see in gaining executive buy-in for change? And, with those challenges, how might you handle those?
It's always a challenge to get executives to buy in. So to answer, it depends upon what the change is, what they're looking for, and how quickly they want the change to occur. So sponsorship, being active and visible, is the number one reason why changes fail. Because most leaders, they come in, they say hello, kick off the project, then they're gone. But they have to be engaged. If you're sponsoring a change, if you're there for that change, you should be visible and active throughout the duration of the change. Now, a project eventually ends. So when it ends, roles changes, but the sustainability is still there. So how do we keep moving that sponsor in and out to show that they're very active and visible, but they're there for resources, they're there for resistance management, to stop any barriers from happening, to help the team move forward. So it just depends upon the leader and where that leader is going to ensure that they are engaged and continue to be engaged with the process or the project.
That makes sense. And it actually builds right into the next question, which is, and this could be applicable to the executive team, C-suite, or really anyone in the organization, but do you believe that, and this question comes from Andrew, do you believe that being too comfortable in one's role could enhance the likelihood of complacency? And by that extension, then reduce the effectiveness of change management within the organization?
Wow, that's a good question. And the reason why I'm kind of pausing on it, because I think a lot of times as leaders, we are engaged and involved and we do become comfortable, but we get too far into the weeds. Mm-hmm. Instead of letting the team do the work and back out and have confidence that the team can do the work, then do your touch points, check in when needed, but you don't have to dig into the weeds. Keep it at that 35,000 foot level view and ensure that you trust and empower your team to do the work. Then it doesn't become complacent, because now you are waiting on them to provide you with whatever information that's needed. And then you can support them and celebrate those small and large wins with them anytime.
Makes sense. So this question comes in from Jose. Does a listening tour, in parentheses here, reference to calendar-free agenda for spontaneous talk, help to understand deeply the workforce? So again, listening tour, does that help understand the workforce a little bit better? And it sounds like he read this technique in Quest for Resilience.
You know what? Listening tours, they do help as long as there's that follow-up. Think of the ADKAR model. You create the awareness, you create the desire, right? You have that ability, you have that knowledge, you have that ability, but reinforce. So if I say to you, you're going to go out on a listening tour and we're really going to write down this information and we're going to make changes. Well, are you following up? Are you following through? Did you really state what was needed? Did you follow up with that individual specifically to say, look, what's happened, what has occurred? But what's important is follow up and follow through. So yes, it can be successful, no question about it. People want to see face-to-face interaction with leaders, but it's the follow-up on the leader's behalf to ensure that their word is bond.
I can see that. Let's shift focus and talk a little bit more about the application to your setting, the FAA and the airline industry. Okay. So this question comes in from Larry. In a regulatory-driven organization like an airline, how have you best managed team members to have not accepted change but must be compliant? So maybe some techniques to manage team members who have not accepted the change, but again, we have no choice but to be compliant in this very regulatory natured industry.
So from the FAA side, I can only say that our compliance philosophy program has been our catalyst in trying to do and work differently in making people understand that we are not the ones that are coming after you. We are ones to work collaboratively with you, okay? From the other side, being compliant, it's a choice. It's a choice whether you really focus on safety and say that safety is your number one. And if it's the choice that's being made, then truly that's what you live and breathe, and that's what you say. On a regulatory side, because we have so many variables and accountability arenas to touch points, if you mind, that it's a lot of people don't understand the layers, starting from Congress all the way down in giving us directives on what we need to do from a regulatory perspective. That in itself causes some of the change, and complacency may seem that way, but sometimes we're bogged down in the way that we have to do some of that business and get it out there right away. But believe me, behind the scenes, there's so much going on that a lot of people just aren't aware of all of the components associated with that arena, especially in regulatory work.
You're perfectly fine.
Thank you.
I love this next question, and it comes in from one of our faculty members, Stephanie Douglas. She asked, much of what we've been talking about thus far has been applied in more of a planned change environment, but what approach might you have for change that is adapted in an unplanned situation or a sudden disruption that required an abrupt change? Any advice you have for those kind of circumstances?
Well, I thought I did touch on that when I talked about COVID. That wasn't planned. There was nothing planned about COVID. There's nothing planned about the come back to work. I mean, yes, that's a process, but do we have it all together? What we have to do is adapt and use a simple model like ADKAR to really think and step back for a moment and say, have we created the awareness? But even before then, it's the discovery. Why are we changing? Even if it's an unplanned change, it's still a change. But the question has to be answered. Why are we changing? What's the impact of the change? What's the risk of not changing? And if we do make this change, are we really clear as to why we're making a change? So once we become clear of what that change encompasses, whether it's deliberate or it's not deliberate, we still have to understand why we're changing. And once we're able to understand that, then we can move forward in many directions and determining the direction we want to go. So no matter if it's thrown at us, We still have to step back, stop, not be reactionary, think about why is this change important, and then be able to really understand it, buy into it at the top, bottom, middle, whomever it's affecting, really buy into it, then act upon it. Sounds simplistic, it isn't. It's a lot involved there, but it really is. If it's a matter of stopping and thinking, and why is this change important? If you can't answer that question, then change can occur, but it may not be as effective as you want it to be.
Very, very good point. And it might not even be good change. That's what this next question touches on, if I'm reading it correctly. So let me just walk through it, and I'd love to hear your viewpoints on this. So it goes on to say, resistance to change is often viewed as a problem to solve by leadership. However, rational change resistance is often a warning sign that the change may have unintended consequences, might even be a bad idea. So how do we help leaders reframe rational resistance to change as an opportunity to help improve the change process, i.e. listen, versus the negative voices to be addressed in a silencer kind of fashion?
Okay, so I kind of double stacked that question, but I want to go to the resistance first because I thought that was very, very important. And they're right. Resistance isn't always negative. Resistance could be a sign of something that's happening. But what we have to do is encourage those individuals that are resistant to speak up. We won't know why they're resistant. There's all kinds of assessments and questionnaires, and how many people get sick of surveys and, to find out, well, why is it working? So let's do a survey. We have to talk to people. Why are you being resistant to the change? What is it that we can do to help you move along the way? Well, maybe this change just isn't good. Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what are the approaches, the appropriate approaches. And if this change, if it's a regulatory change that has to occur, then there's no discussion or debate. But if there's a discussion of a potential change of why we don't need to do it, then let's have a discussion about it. But there's an opportunity to always talk. Resistors are great individuals as their gauges to understand the desired outcome. Again, you have your early adopters, you have your latter adopters, but you also have those resistors. Resistors are to be embraced. Resistors are to be targeted from the standpoint of what can we do to help you move along in this change. And that comes from a leader. That comes from maybe that frontline manager having that discussion. Now, the second part of that question, would you give it to me? You're on mute, look.
Yes, no, I'm just referring back to my question list. My apologies.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, you are fine. It was just talking about, well, I think you answered both elements of the question, because really it focused on, again, how might that, that negative voice be seen as an opportunity to learn about the change, to really answer if perhaps the why to the answer wasn't clear, and there's the opportunity to further clarify for those types of instances. So as I'm looking back on the question, it appears as though you touched on both angles of that. If I'm not true in that, I'm sure more questions will come in to clarify, because I have to say we are getting a significant number of questions, and I hope we will be able to address them all. If we do not, to our audience, we always take the opportunity to follow up with our guest speakers and make sure we do answer all of those that are coming in. Let's talk a little bit about technology, Vanessa. Technology, of course, much as like the pandemic, has kind of changed how business is done. It has, influenced how change is adopted, and sometimes how quickly it has to be adopted. So what advice do you have for companies that are trying to implement new technology, and perhaps technology that has a very steep learning curve for those that are maybe hesitant to adopt that change?
Technology, it's exciting to me. I can't begin to tell you how it personally makes me feel when I know that you have this new gadget or something that's coming that's going to just help us be more efficient and more effective. But I also realize that you can look at generations. It takes some longer than others to really catch up and to do the work or what's needed. For me, it's like texting. I'm a one finger texter. I can't do the thumbs. And my adults tell me, Mom, it's okay. You don't have to catch up with that change. However, when I think about technology companies and targeting certain markets and helping people understand the change that's coming, I think we've lost an opportunity to really focus in segments, in groups. For instance, I hate using ages because not everybody's always as savvy, but let's just use age as a demographic. And if there was a way to help people to understand in my age group that a change is coming and it's not about, one of the things that people do get confused on constantly is that change management is about communication plans. It is not. Again, my emphasis about change management is about people. And how do you work with people? So technology would allow, if technology companies sometimes would just take the time and use focus groups, and I'm sure they do, not to the full extent that I would like to see it, but even in their advertisement commercials, right? Or just advertising in general, looking from a business perspective, you have an untapped market that can benefit instead of being afraid of a change. And so how do you work with them early on so that they become early adopters and that they are embracing that change and making it something extremely viable to use? So great opportunities exist. Just again, step back, know your audience, and understand why this change is occurring and what's the benefit. What is the benefit realization that you're trying to seek? And if you're able to tap into all of that, you'll have greater success.
Thank you for that. Let's look at technology in the aviation industry then. I'm actually going to jump ahead to a question from Andrew, and he ties both of those topics together in this dialogue and question. So he goes on to say the aviation environment changes rapidly with technology, with social and environmental pressures. And as these other, external circumstances that you have described through the presentation, however, in those regulatory organizations, changing regulations to adapt these various changes can be slow and sometimes reactive. So in those circumstances, how can the regulatory organizations adapt quicker? And this could be applicable to civilian organizations as well. Again, those that are hesitant or resistant to change as an organizational framework. But again, this question more so towards those regulatory organizations, how can they adapt quicker to the changing environment and be more proactive? Do you have any advice there?
Oh, I've got a lot of advice. Doesn't mean it's going to be taken, but I will tell you that, yes, we are still far behind in some areas of adapting to change. But as I stated earlier, you have to understand the lay of the land, the regulatory requirements, the reporting of processes and procedures. You must be able to understand and learn more about the government and how it works. And when regulatory requirements come about, it isn't easy just to make a change overnight. Oh, we wish we could, but there has to be data to support it. There has to be accountability to understand why these changes are occurring. We have perfect examples of the 737 MAX and, the Boeing Corporation and all these things that just occurred. Great case study for anyone in school, as far as I'm concerned, this entire component of what's happened, not for an outside corporation and the regulatory compliance part of it, and how the synergy, was it right? Was it targeted? What do we miss? How are we going? There's a lot of unanswered questions there that we have to answer. But there is hope that things will change. But how can you function on continual resolutions when they're 3 months at a time, when you're being given your budget for the year? Our government, we can't operate like that. You can't have innovation and creativity when you only have 3 months of funding. And it goes on and on over the last 10 plus years. So that's not an excuse. That's just a fact and a reality of what's happening and why we can advance in some of the things that we're doing from a regulatory side.
Absolutely. There's always challenges. Again, outside those regulatory environments, or again, whether it's in the context of a small business that has some resource limitations, it's all about working with within those parameters, if you will. Vanessa, we have approximately 10 or so minutes left, and I know there's quite a few questions that touch on the element of how to convince individuals, whether it was again at the executive level or all throughout the organization, how to really convince them to advance that change. I think we've addressed some of those at least on some level. So let's shift focus and talk a little bit about the coaching arm of your role and your contributions to the industry. There are a few questions that are focused in that arena. So let's first, this one is a bit of a, I'm going to go right in with a tough question. How do you deal with coach leaders who are perhaps narcissist or are leading change from their perspective? This comes from a faculty member and says that many of my students ask me this question because their experience in the workforce with leaders who are rigid during change. So have you come across circumstances such as that? And could you help give some illustration on how you might handle that?
Oh, I have a lot of illustrations, but they may not be good for this discussion. So if you want to talk one-on-one, we'll be happy to do that. However, people have to want to change, and people have to want to be coached. In a coaching relationship, you have an agreement, and in that agreement, the client determines, or the coachee determines, what is it that they want to be coached on. So by you thinking that this individual is a narcissist, probably is. However, they may not see that. They may not see themselves until that mirror is shined on them by someone being truthful to them and actually saying, you know what, you might need a coach. You might need somebody to help you see some things. A lot of times we're not able to self-diagnose and self-evaluate our shortfalls. And that's only human nature. But by somebody else shining that mirror and saying, maybe coaching might be a good thing for you. We might be able to help others see some of the things that they could possibly change and build upon. But I will always say, in this world today, we have to be authentic leaders, and we have to be genuine and transparent in what we say and what we do. So if you really care about an individual and you say that we do, some leaders, they just need that mirror shined on them to get some help. That's the easiest response that I have for that.
That makes complete sense. One of the things you touched on in that coaching exchange was the element of accountability, or serving as that accountability partner in the relationship. So can you give us an example of accountability, perhaps some metrics that you might use to measure the effectiveness of a coaching initiative inside of an organization? So again, that accountability both at the individual level, the coachee, and then how do we know that coaching is an initiative that might work for an organization?
Starts with the top. I'm going to say that again, and I know I keep saying it, but if the leader does not believe in coaching, then it's not going to filter down for the rest of the organization. The leader has to lead by example. But I truly believe in the coaching arena, accountability is all about what you want to achieve in your career. So, for instance, if you, Rachel, want to be the dean of next business school, if you, Rachel, says, Vanessa, this is what I want to work on, this is where I want to be, how do I get there? Then we set a plan and we make a determination. You tell me some of the things you want to do, we talk about it, we work on that plan and we work together to build that out. As for an organization, it depends upon what that organization is trying to achieve. Is it increase sales by? Well, coaches can't make that type of commitment. That is against our ICF ethics. And I wouldn't even want to be a part of that because I can't make a guarantee. That's like betting. I'm not going to bet and say that my services is going to provide you 10% increase in your sales. We can't do that. However, if you want me to work with your people and help your people learn to be accountable and move into a space where they are actually saying, okay, I want to be accountable for this. How can you help me move? Then I can help you with that, help you achieve that desired outcome of whatever that may be. I hope that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. Again, everything from the buy-in to that to knowing what the true potential of that coaching relationship could look like and what it's set out to do. This question comes in from somebody that you might recognize the name, Jamie Highlander, and she asked the question, how do you know when you're ready for a leadership coach, or maybe that you know you need a leadership coach, and how do you vet somebody to be a coach, going through that interview process, if you will?
And that's exactly it. You said it, interview process. My first recommendation is to look at someone's background. What have they accomplished? What they have achieved? Interview at least 2 to 3 coaches to determine if it's a fit, because there needs to be a fit. Not everyone is going to be a fit for you as a coach, but it is really important to take the time and determine what is it that you're trying to achieve. What are you trying to accomplish in a coaching relationship? That's when you know, and especially as a leader, when are you ready? I tell college students to this day, and even high school students, you're ready for a coach now. We can start working on thinking differently, being differently, holding ourselves accountable. I bet many parents would love to have a coach, a personal coach for their children, to get them to be accountable to clean their room or to make them accountable to do a lot of different things. But we don't think like that. We don't think that, well, that's not good parenting. Well, it's not a matter of good parenting. Sometimes there's just a communication gap. And so here's that coach to fill that gap, but to help that coachee feel valued and understood. That's what the key is in making better people and helping us to be better human beings all the way around. So that's my thing, Jamie, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And you have expressed such great knowledge about the element of change management, both on the personal level and then also within the organizational context. Tell us, Vanessa, what makes somebody a good change management professional? What skills are necessary to really thrive in the role that you have? And what advice might you have for somebody who is anticipating perhaps a career in this field?
Thank you. Change management. If I was to apply for my job right now, I would not probably be hired because it's becoming more advanced, more technical in the sense of they want you to be a PMP, they want you to be a project manager, they want you to have that side. But the part that I know is natural for me is being my authentic, real self. What you see is what you get. This is what I bring to leaders. I am truthful. I am honest. I have your back. I want you to be successful. I want you to achieve whatever your desired outcomes are. That combined with that technical component makes a good change advisor. Now, a change management practitioner, we're still looking at for the FAA, we are setting the standard in creating a change practitioner, which is now going to be an individual that has the PMP and the CMP certification as both as a new position. And as a change advisor, we are also creating and have created the JATS, or the job task analysis, in these job positions eventually to come out that you are going to be a PMP plus change management experience, but also the ability to communicate effectively and all these other things. So there's a lot of growth in this area, but I would recommend to anyone, if they want to talk about it, to I'll be happy to speak about it, but to also do a little research with the companies that you're looking at and what are they looking at as change management. Change management has been around a long time, but there's various iterations that are going on right now. So you've got to find the right iteration for you.
Sounds like the world of change management is ever changing.
Changing.
And
Yes.
with that, I know there are some questions that I haven't yet got to in the Q&A, but in some level we've touched on them in different fashions. So if there are any that we haven't, that we've glaringly overlooked, we will certainly get those to you, Vanessa, and I certainly appreciate the time that you spent with us this evening. At this point, again, I'm going to sign off and just again, thank you for being with us tonight, and turn the floor back over to Dean Manish Sharma.
Thank you so much.
Rachel. As usual, a great job of steering this webinar. Thank you, Rachel, for the great questioning and steering. Vanessa, what can I say? Awesome performance. I think 3 cheers. Wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know it takes a lot of preparation just to put your thoughts together. And you've done a wonderful job of presenting your wisdom and your experience with all of us. So again, on behalf of the college and the university, Vanessa, I want to express my personal gratitude as an individual. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for giving us this time, and as well to the audience. Want you to know that this is in a long series of conversations that the college is having. So as we close out this edition of Vantage Point, we do encourage you to stay tuned for future events and visit our Embry-Riddle worldwide YouTube channel for on-demand recordings of the past events. Until next time, everybody, stay well, stay together, and be well. Thank you, everyone, for joining as well in the audience. Vanessa, once more, as I bid you farewell, good evening and good night and good rest of the week. Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you.
As we move forward. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.